It is about to be 7 a.m. for me, and I have not been to sleep. I've been out here grinding videos for Zenless, which is why you see the lighting isn't as good as it is, and then I got mess on my bed. Don't worry about that. This video is probably going to be very uncut, which is going to be going through this, and we're doing this video because there was actually an interview article that was posted by IGN going over some inspirations for Zenless Zone Zero and probably giving us a little bit more details on some new information coming for the game, hopefully pretty soon. And it has me interested because there's a big statement here for the heading of the interview, and it says Zenless Zone Zero producer reveals surprising inspiration, and it's not Persona 5. And if you guys know me, one of the big things that drew me to this game was like some of the elements that felt very Persona-esque inspired, but it seems like there's another cause for this, and I want to see what it is. So let's get into it. Genshin Impact and the Honkai Starverse Studio HoYoverse newest upcoming title, Zenless Zone Zero, is a fusion of what you'd expect from HoYoverse games with totally new ideas. The game studio's development processes are largely a mystery, but in an interview with Zenless Zone Zero producer Jué Qū Líng at a media event, IGN learned a little more about what goes into kicking off an entirely new game at HoYoverse, Zenless Zone Zero's future, and at least this particular team's positioning in generative AI. I was not expecting that last statement, but let's see what they cooking up here. Zenless Zone Zero, also known as ZZZ, is an action game with a heavy emphasis on its flashy urban landscape set in a apocalyptic world. Players take their team of 3 into monster-infested roguelike zones. They bounce back to the city's landscape to complete side quests, get to know characters better, and maybe grab a cup of coffee or a bowl of ramen. Like other HoYoverse games, its variety of stylish characters with combat specialization is arguably its biggest focal point, as their entertainment landscape has been in a tumult with the rush of what the world am I saying? As the entertainment landscape has been in a tumult. I don't know what that word is with the rush in the development of generative AI. We couldn't help but ask, is Zenless Zone Zero team using generative AI in the development, or is it planning to? I think that the human touch is more meaningful right now, and this is what our team is pursuing. Today, no, Lee said. For the art part, we have not tried it, but we have tried a part of it to touch on the programming. As for the art aspect, I think the human touch is more meaningful right now, and this is what our team is pursuing. Yes, this is what I feel about AI as a whole for the most part. I think for doing like technological advancements and improvements to make things a lot easier for like game development, it's fine to include those things for like coding and improving programming, like making like action sequence a lot more smoother and stuff. I think adding form of AI there is fine, but including AI in something like art, I feel like that's where you kind of cross the line of where AI should and shouldn't be. And it's good to hear that a lot of the art is still being done by human, especially for Zenless Zone Zero, and I'm pretty sure for a lot of HoYoverse's work, which is why their art style is very much beloved, because of who is created by with the human touch. This approach seems to be in line with what Honkai Star Rail team explored in using AI for development as of last year, which makes sense. Lee also explained that when developing ZZZ's characters, the aesthetics came first early on. However, that changed as the development progressed. The planning team responsible for character mechanics and the art team now work closely together to create new characters. The Zenless Zone Zero team and collaboration. The development team behind HoYoverse Massive Games has largely been a mystery, though Lee offered some context of how the ZZZ team behind the handmade art came to be. Lee said it began with only 12 people in its initial demo stages in 2020 before growing to around 60 people during its first closed beta. Now it's ballooned to more than 400 team members, and this is good to hear because I remember in the last interview that we had from them, he did mention that it was a very small team initially when it started, but he didn't mention how big the team has grown. To know that it went from 12 to 400 people backing the game, that's really good to hear, because that means there's a lot of people that can do improvements, and it has me it's still a pretty small development team, and when you think about the grand scheme of things of a lot of developers and stuff, but it is a pretty sizable enough team to let me know that they have solid enough backing to get changes done and have the game be fully supported for a pretty long time with the amount of members that they have. And I hope that the game is successful enough that the team continues to grow and bring in new people. Zenless Zone Zero's development team is very young, and a lot of us come from different backgrounds, Lee said. We have veterans from the gaming industry, but also young talents who share the same values and are all passionate about getting involved in the creation of an interesting product. Indeed, some team members, including myself, had experience working on HoYoverse other projects before. Take me for instance. I used to take care of the CG animations and video for Honkai Impact 3rd. Ooh, that makes sense why a lot of the things are the way they are with Zenless, because a lot of people will say that Zenless is like the new age version of Honkai Impact 3rd. And I think that since Lee is the team lead, I believe he's the producer of the game, it makes sense that he probably draws a lot of inspiration from his CG and animation work back then when working with Impact 3rd. Lee clarified that the ZZZ team only works on their project rather than swapping between other HoYoverse properties, and that collaboration between the different game teams is quite rare. Not that it doesn't exist, Lee said. I'll check with the team for an advisor such as for the technical aspects. So it seems like they're more so to themselves and work solely on ZZZ, but it seems like they do kind of mix and mingle with the other teams within Star Rail, Impact 3rd, or Genshin 2, which is pretty cool to hear. Zenless Zone Zero's inspiration. Now, this is the main section of the article that is getting a lot of the buzz. It says Lee acknowledged that the ZZZ team received many comparisons to Persona 5, with both sharing a stylish city setting, though he said that they are hoping to create something unique. And though there may be some visual and musical similarities, the heart of the game doesn't have its roots in Persona, which is surprising. Not really music-wise, because I don't get really the music vibe from Persona, but more so the aesthetics and some of the gameplay elements within the game. Aside from the urban setting, one element that reminds Persona players like myself of Atlas series is ZZZ's time system. Similar to Persona 5, ZZZ has 4 points in the day with different activities available as time passes, with the missions completing and other triggers. This is one of the aspects that kind of gave me Persona X feelings. Lee explained that his inspiration for ZZZ's time mechanic was actually instead from a much older game important to his childhood, Digimon World. Oh, see, I don't think I've ever played Digimon World, so I don't know too much about it, but I have heard that a lot of people do love that game, and I think I am or was aware that there was a day or time setting mechanic within it, but I don't know too much about it. The 1999 game also featured a clock with specific events that happened at particular times throughout the day. The other major inspiration was surprisingly Street Fighter 6. Though ZZZ is an action game more akin to DMC and not a fighting game, you can see the inspiration in its fast combat, emphasis on stunning enemies, and chaining combos. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense to me. So you guys know I'm a fighting game player. And so when looking at Street Fighter 6, I can kind of like the hip hop aesthetic and stuff. If that's what they want to say, that's where the inspiration from Street Fighter comes from, I could understand that. But Street Fighter is more so a lot more methodical form of combat in fighting games. I can maybe understand like the stunning of enemies. I can kind of see that with like how there's a lot of emphasis on hits, and when you get a hit in Street Fighter, it is very deliberate and meaningful. But chaining combos in the fast combat, I wouldn't really think of Street Fighter. I would definitely think more so akin to a DMC, which funny enough, I am going through the Devil May Cry games for the first time. And so I would see more so with that, especially like maybe like if they were really into like DMC 3, which is what I'm playing right now. I could kind of feel like a feeling of DMC 3-esque things within Zenless. It kind of reminds me of it, but not as deep or planned out, like or at least developed as DMC3 is now, with a lot of tech that players are fine, but more so probably when DMC3 first came out, before people knew how deep the game was, with a lot of broken mechanics within it, how it would actually play, or I guess supposed to have played when it first released. Zenless Zone Zero's development team is very young, and a lot of us come from different backgrounds. Lee mentioned he spent thousands of hours in the Street Fighter series and learned a lot about the feedback of its action, with how each punch really feels that it's on the flesh of your own flesh. Lee said the ZZZ team is trying to draw inspiration from their own comic and make each animation frame matter. Another major lesson Lee took from Street Fighter 6 was how to pace tutorials for newcomers to action games. Pacing of all ZZ mechanics has changed quite a lot between each of its closed beta, and Lee said that the planning team has tried to make sure all important tutorials are more spread out to not be overwhelming. This is good to hear. It wasn't super overwhelming, I believe, in CBT 3, but hopefully they even improved it much more, because that is a good, really strong thing that Street Fighter 6 does, is that it teaches you the game in very nice chunks and pieces, so it doesn't feel like you're completely being overwhelmed when getting into the game the first time. You being a newcomer to Street Fighter is probably, or you being a newcomer to fighting games, Street Fighter 6 is probably one of the easier games to get into because of how well its teaching systems are implemented within the game. So for ZZ to pull inspiration from that and have its inclusion within that game, I think is a really good idea, even if the game is as easy as it is. Potential future of Zenless Zone Zero. When ZZ launches on July 4th, it will be available on PlayStation 5, mobile devices, and PC, but Lee said that they're not stopping development there. They're working to bring ZZZ to Nintendo Switch and Xbox too, though Lee frames ZZZ's arrival on these platforms as a hope and not something quite set in stone. That's nice to hear. One of the big markets that Hoyo has been missing out is the Nintendo audience and the Xbox audience. I think more importantly, definitely the Nintendo audience, because I don't know how well free-to-play games are performed on Xbox, but I definitely know Nintendo has been wanting Genshin Impact on the Switch for a long time. And I think if it's any game that can actually fit up there out of all of the Hoyo games, I think ZZZ will probably be one of the ones that'll be a lot more easier to get up on the platform, since it is a instance-based game. Star Road could probably get there too as well. But definitely between those two, I can picture them getting on the Switch, while Genshin probably will have a much more harder time to play up there, since it is an open world game. And I know you guys are probably gonna say, well, Zelda exists, and I mean it's an in-house Nintendo game, so they know the ins and out of the hardware of the Switch to understand how to make the game run properly, and HoYoverse doesn't have that complete luxury. As a live service game, though, it is set in stone that ZZZ will get content updates. Lee confirmed that this will include things like expansions to the city with new neighborhoods, shops, and of course characters. We have a basic framework for the storyline, but we're also a very flexible team. Lee said when he asked about how far they've planned ZZZ's story, we constantly review what we've created in the past to see if we can continue to utilize it or if we have better ideas and solutions. When designing these characters, we would always consider what players haven't seen before. One international HoYoverse fan request has been for better representation in characters, especially in the HoYoverse games that feature real-life inspirations of diverse cultures yet neglect to reflect the people who live there. Steps to reflect these international audiences have been taken to varying degrees, and ZZZ's Amalgamation Cities provides fresh opportunity to do more. In Zenless Zone Zero, we have created a wide range of characters. When designing these characters, we will always consider what players haven't seen before. We want to ensure characters of various types are included so players can look forward to more imaginative designs that will surprise them in the future. I think our team has added almost everything we wanted for the launch of the game and is ready for players, Lee said. However, of course, we have plenty of interesting ideas and plans for the game in the future, which we will share more at the right time. One thing that I particularly want to share is the multiplayer battle mode is already under development, and I hope players can look forward to this mode in the future version update. What? A what? A multiplayer battle mode? Lee, you can't just drop that. What? We're getting PvP? We're getting PvP in Zenless? Is that what he means? If this can be the first time that PvP can be done properly in a gacha game where it won't be Whale City, I'm here for it. But if it's going to be Whale City, I might still play it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. But I'm not willing. I'm not. But I was not expecting that to be the drop on us. That's cool. A multiplayer battle mode. I wonder where we're going to get more information about that. That's really sick. But based off this interview, I'm actually pretty surprised based on the inspiration stuff that they pulled from Digimon World and Street Fighter 6. Those are two games I would have never thought that would have been the main inspiration for this game. I can pretty much understand Digimon World once they kind of explained it, but for Street Fighter, it just kind of felt left field. Now, I did have a feeling that it was some form of fighting game inspiration there, or other action games, of course, like DMC. But when thinking of fighting games, I would have probably thought maybe they were more aligned with thinking of like maybe like a Arxis or something, like how they done the anime fighters with maybe like Dragon Ball Fighters or something. But not a Street Fighter 6. That's actually crazy. That multiplayer battle mode thing still has to be pretty shook. But that's everything with this. It is going on about to be 7:30 for me, and again, I have not slept. I think I've been up for almost 24 hours now, so I need to get some sleep. Hopefully I can get this video out to you guys pretty soon, sometime today. Again, it's probably not going to be super edited, but I do want to get this out to you so you guys can see what the future of Zenless Zone Zero is, and how the company is thinking about the game as a whole. I love doing these type of videos of looking at interviews and seeing behind the scenes of things. It's always pretty cool to me, so I hope you guys enjoy them as well. Remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and always remember to believe in you that believes in yourself. I'll see you guys in the next one.